So after read the story, The Gift of the Magi, now I will introduce to you a textual concept called theme. I know some of you might have heard of this concept, theme, and you might think you know it, you might be right. However, I just want to make sure we're on the same page, so let's start from scratch. Can everyone read the definition of theme on the slide with me? A theme is a statement about a topic constructed through the choices of plot, character, setting, and language. It conveys an attitude or value about a topic. Great. So what's the difference between a topic and a theme? Can anyone tell me the difference? Great. Topic, one word. For example, sacrifice, love, friendship. Theme, a full sentence. For example, true love is expressed through selfless sacrifice. Now this might sound abstract. Let's look at a specific example. Do we remember the story of Cinderella? Can anyone remind me what the story Cinderella is about? Great, that's the story. Let's look at it. What's the topic of Cinderella and what the theme of it? By telling a story where a kind person gets rewarded at the end, while the people who are just mean and cruel to her didn't get what they want. What does the author try to say? Does the author try to persuade people to be kind to others or be mean to others? Be kind to others, right? So the author is trying to persuade us to be kind to others. The theme is usually the author's attitude toward a topic. Like if the topic is kindness, does the author support people to be kind, or does the author disapprove of people to be kind? So obviously the author support people to be kind. So what we learn from that, if you are trying to persuade others to be kind, instead of just say, be kind to others, you can write a story about how a kind person gets what they want while people who are mean to her didn't get what they want. That's a way of persuading others and to convey your values. Okay, now that we have seen how a theme works, let's look at the final paragraph of The Gift of the Magi together. Can everyone read with me? And here I have told you the story of two children who were not wise. Each sold the most valuable thing he owned in order to buy a gift for the other. But let me speak a last word to the wise of these days. Of all who gave gifts, these two were the most wise. Of all who give and receive gifts, such as they are the most wise. Everywhere they are the wise ones. They are the Magi. Okay, so what's the topic and what's the theme of The Gift of the Magi? Let me put it this way. So, why did the author say that these two children were not wise? Awesome, because each of them sold the most valuable thing they owned in order to buy a gift for the other, so both of their gifts are useless. Della cut her hair to buy a watch chain for Jim. However, Jim had already sold her watch, so the watch chain is useless. And Jim sold his watch to buy a comb for Della's hair. However, Della already cut her hair, so the comb is useless. That's the reason why the author called them not wise. So why did the author say at the end that they are the wise ones? What can we tell about the topic and the theme of this story? The author told a story about how two people sacrificed their most valuable thing for each other. The author said they are wise to do that. Did the author support their behavior of sacrificing themselves for their loved ones? Yes, the author support their behavior of sacrificing. Now we know that the author's attitude towards sacrifice is that the author supports sacrifice. So the theme can be selfless sacrifice is the truest expression of love, even when it leads to an ironic outcome. That's the author's attitude towards it. So by finding a theme of a text, we basically just try to tell what's the author's attitude towards it, towards the topic. So the topic can be sacrifice or love, and the author's attitude is that the author believes sacrifice is the true expression of love. You may agree with it or you may not, it doesn't matter. And there is no a single way to or a correct answer about the topic or theme, because we can interpret a text in different ways and there's no right or wrong. Later, we will have an activity where you're encouraged to share your ideas, your interpretation of what the text tried to convey. Now that we know about what a theme is, let's look at how language reinforces theme. Let's read the first paragraph of the gift of the Magi together. $1.87. That was all. She had put it aside. 1 cent and then another and then another. In her careful buying of meat and other food, that counted it 3 times. $1.87. And the next day would be Christmas. There was nothing to do but fall on the bed and cry. So Della did it. Okay, so what did the author tell us in this paragraph? Great, they're really poor. So why did Della cry? Because they don't have the money to buy Christmas gifts. Okay, so to sum it up, this long paragraph just try to convey a very simple message that they're poor, they don't have money. So why would the author write such a long paragraph to convey such simple message? Why did the author repeat $1.87 twice? And why did it have to be $1.87? Could it just be $1 or $2? Why does it have to be $1.87? Did this question ever occur to anyone when they're reading this paragraph? Great, because the author tried to use a very specific number to make the readers memorize their poverty, to make their poverty very specific. Let me ask you a question. If a very rich person is willing to buy you a gift that you like, do you think they really like you? Yes, they may or they may not, because they're very rich, so buying a small gift for them is no big deal. However, if a person is really poor, but they're still willing to sacrifice and buy the gift that you like to make you happy, do you think they're truly in love with you? It is definitely more persuasive than the first version. The author tried to use the poverty to reinforce their sacrifice and to enhance their love for each other. And this paragraph basically describes their poverty. So how does the author describe the poverty? Through his choices of language to reinforce the theme. Great, the author used repetition. So he repeats $1.87 twice. And also, when he's describing Della's action of counting money, he also repeats 1 cent and then another and then another. Della counted it 3 times. So why did the author describe Della's action of counting the money in such detail? And what effect does this description have? Can anyone have a picture in their mind seeing Della counting the money? See her in their mind, visually picture Della counting the money, 1 cent and then another and then another. Della counted it 3 times. So let's compare. All they have is $1. They're poor. They don't have the money to buy presents for each other. So which version is better? Great. So everyone agrees that O. Henry's version is better than this version, even if they basically convey the same message. Actually, in the second version, all they have is $1. They actually have even less money than $1.87. But when you're reading the first version, you just feel like they're poor. They're really, really poor. But when you're reading the second version, it just doesn't have so much power. So how come O. Henry can create the powerful description of their poverty? What techniques did he use? What languages did he use? Right, so he used repetition, and he used a very specific number. And he described Della's action of counting the money in detail. That's how O. Henry creates a powerful description of their poverty. And that's how language reinforces the theme. Do we still remember the theme? So the theme was selfless sacrifice is the true expression of love. Well, if they're really poor, obviously it just enhances their sacrifice. So that's how language reinforces theme. Okay, so far we have known what a theme is and how language can reinforce theme. Now I want you to work in groups to look at these 3 moments and discuss what do these moments show us about love or sacrifice. So we should pay attention to the language that O. Henry used.